Today, I have a slightly different video for you. No mining, no dividends. This time, I'll show you how I traveled around Vietnam with Wise and Airalo in a really relaxed and affordable way. I'll go through my actual expenses completely transparently, what my withdrawals cost me, and how much I saved compared to using a regular card, and why this setup works so incredibly easily. Let's get to the question. Why did I even use Wise in the first place? I usually use my American Express a lot, but in Vietnam, it's just not always accepted. And especially when it comes to street food, smaller restaurants, local shops, or markets, they almost exclusively take cash. Visa or MasterCard work much better, but even here, there's an issue. The exchange rate and the ATM fees vary a lot. So why was Wise the best setup for me? Because it's not the only cheapest card out there. There's also Treasury Republic, Revolut, or N26. These are also much better than a traditional bank card. At first, I also downloaded Revolut, but somehow the registration process there, I just didn't find it all that convenient, but with Wise, it was actually better. And those are also the advantages that were perfect for me personally, which are basically the most important ones now. For one, I could completely set my own exchange rate. I had extremely transparent fees. I had a multi-currency account and good control over withdrawals. And the split payment method, that's also available to simply split the amount directly, but I have to say I actually didn't use it in my case. And because of that, I ended up paying significantly less. So the most important reason for me was simply being able to set the exchange rate myself. Specifically, I decide myself when I want to exchange euros into Vietnamese dong. And at the real market rate, here's my example. I exchanged 500 euros. 1 euro was about 30,623 Vietnamese dong at that time. The result was I received 15,206,811 Vietnamese dong, and the fee was 3 euros and 43 cents. That's extremely close to the real market price. Now let's move on to the comparison, Wise versus other cards more or less realistically. It's very important to note, I'm not saying that every bank card is bad, but on average, it looks roughly like this. Wise with the market rate is about 30,623 Vietnamese dong, while other providers usually offer between 29,800 and 30,300 Vietnamese dong. And regular banks offer about 29,000 to 29,500 Vietnamese dong. If we just convert that to 500 euros, for example. And as I said, I also timed the exchange rate myself. So at a good rate, just exchanged it, where the euro simply had more value compared to the Vietnamese dong. So let's convert the 500 euros. With Wise, it was 15,206,811. With other fintechs, it might have been around 15 million, and with a regular bank card, maybe 14,650,000. My advantage over a regular bank card, because I timed the exchange rate, is about 556,000 Vietnamese dong. And what exactly does that mean for Vietnam? 556,000 Vietnamese dong. That doesn't sound like a huge amount at first because that's about 15 euros. But in Vietnam, for 100,000 Vietnamese dong, you can get a full meal with a drink. So in my case, 556,000 Vietnamese dong would be 5 to 6 meals. So that's easily 2 days worth of food just because I was able to time the exchange rate. And that was just the first exchange of 500 euros. For 1,000 euros, for example, that would already be 1.1 million Vietnamese dong difference. So that's almost 30 euros. Just because I timed the exchange rate right. Since we're kind of in the finance space here, of course. It was also super interesting for me, especially if you have a plan and you want to go to that country. Of course, you can also simply set price alerts, or perhaps even specify when one simply wants to swap. Let's just get to my actual cash withdrawal now. So I withdrew a total of 17,170,136 Vietnamese dong. That's approximately 561 euros. I also paid part of it directly, of course, simply with the white card. The fees were as follows. ATM fees of the local banks, 468,000 Vietnamese dong. It should also be noted that not every bank charged me fees. I also had some that didn't charge any fees. Then we have to consider the Wise ATM fees. In general, that would come to a total of 109,545 Vietnamese dong. And then, in addition to that, I also had a Wise Forex fee of exactly 3 euros and 43 cents. So to recap, those Wise ATM fees were 109,000, well, exactly 109,545 Vietnamese dong, which works out to be somewhere between 2 and 3 euros, just so you have that specific figure in mind. And then, yes, there are another 3 euros basically for the Forex conversion fees. And those were basically the total cost involved. So that is about 5 euros just from Wise alone. And otherwise, you are looking at about 15 euros from the various local banks. So in total, it comes to roughly 20 euros altogether. Then let's take a quick look at the key facts. There are a total of 160 countries and territories with 40 currencies included. It is definitely regulated by the EBR, the National Bank of Belgium. I actually didn't need the support team, so I can't say anything about that, but otherwise I can say that I ordered my Wise card physically because, well, I need to withdraw cash, so I need the physical card. Better safe than sorry. And for the physical card, they basically charge 7 euros, and I think mine arrived within a week, so that was actually really fast. What's also very important to me, this is just my personal experience, I'm not being paid for this video, it's simply the impression I got from using Wise on my vacation. Exactly. Then banks and other providers charge a markup on the actual exchange rate so that you end up paying more. With us, you don't have to worry about that. See for yourself. Exactly. So as I said, I also timed my currency exchange myself, among other things. Yes, exactly. I just quickly went through the website. Let's just take a quick look at it now, also briefly in my profile, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Exactly. Then let's just quickly go to the transactions. So here, everything is completely listed out for us. Nice, what we have here. So personally, what I really liked was that we could just click on download here and easily create a complete PDF. And then you have all the transactions nicely included here, which I also find really great because everything is completely listed. So if you've been on vacation for a longer period, like in my case, it was 4 weeks, you can just pull up this list. And of course, that also makes it easy to analyze what you actually spent. Well, sure, you usually already know because you've transferred a certain amount anyway. But at least you know what you might have spent in case you want to do some analysis afterwards. Exactly. And here is this bill splits feature. And it even says here that your friends don't have to be with Vivid. Yeah. Pay with Vivid. So Vivid is, well, Visa. Everything worked everywhere without any problems, exactly. And as I said, I didn't use the splitting feature myself. That's why I can't say exactly how the process works, but in general, it's super convenient if, for example, you're in a Grab or an Uber and you can just split the bill right away. So that really makes things a lot more convenient, especially if you're out with 2 to 4 people. In my case, I was traveling alone most of the time, except for the first 2 weeks. But there, we actually just did it so that everyone simply paid for their own stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about Vivid for now. I'll put the affiliate link down in the video description so you can see what you get if you use my link to sign up. A free card or a fee-free transfer of up to 500 euros. So if you're thinking about using Vivid, feel free to use my link. Let's move on to the next topic. ELO, internet without the hassle of SIM cards. On my trip to Vietnam, I used ELO specifically as an eSIM for Vietnam. Why? I just wanted to have internet right away as soon as I landed. And I didn't have to hand over my phone to someone just so they could install a SIM card. Of course, I just found it more convenient that way. You always had full control no matter where you were. For example, I went hiking once and I could theoretically top up my balance at any time, which I actually had to do once because I ran out. The 16 gigabytes just weren't enough for 4 weeks. So the advantages, the installation was super fast. I'd say it took less than a minute. You received the QR code by email. Then you just scan it with your iPhone. And after that, you quickly have internet access. What I did was deactivate my primary SIM in the settings so that there was no internet running on it. and only the eSIM 2 was used for internet access. There definitely weren't any mistakes made, and I didn't end up with a higher bill afterwards or anything like that. I just activated it and I was safe. The advantage, of course, is that I had internet everywhere. And as I said, I didn't have to buy a Vietnamese SIM card, and in the end, it was all completely hassle-free. And for me, overall, it was simply the perfect combination. Wise and Airalo for the vacation. I just really enjoyed using it. Yes, there's also a code included here if you go to my website, mbcapitalstrategies.com. But everything is listed there, including other codes, or by now, even dividend calculators. But that's not the point right now. Just click on Toolbox here, and then everything is listed there. Travel and finance wise. I use Waste myself, as I said, and here Airalo has the advantage. €3 bonus code. If you enter this code here, just copy the code beforehand and start with the bonus, and then simply enter it as a referral link, and you'll easily secure the 3%. That too. Here's an affiliate link, and you support. Ultimately, you simply support my channel, which really helps save money realistically. I definitely don't want to make any false promises. It really depends on which card you normally use. For me, it was just extremely good because of the exchange rate, and I had no problems withdrawing money, and I have no ongoing costs. I just load money onto it and use it basically like a prepaid balance. Yes, compared to German traditional banks, it's about 40 to 80 euros based on what I've researched. Compared to good fintech providers, it's sometimes even a bit cheaper, but here too, maybe only minimally. Ultimately, it also just depends on how you want to handle the whole thing yourself. For me, the exchange rate was just super attractive, I have to say, and also the cash withdrawals, because I depended on having cash. Otherwise, I might have handled it differently, but for cash withdrawals, so from me, that's definitely a good recommendation, or at least it really helped me a lot. Now let's finally get to the conclusion. For traveling, especially in Asia, Wise is just relaxed and affordable for me. As I said, I set the exchange rate myself. I can see all the fees transparently in advance. I can easily split my amount. I can withdraw my money anywhere. I get a good rate. And Airalo makes sure I have internet everywhere. As I said, this is not a sponsorship. I'm just showing you what I personally used and what helped me until then, and wishing you successful travels in this case.